This show is supported by you, our listener. Stick around till after the news to hear more about that. This is Cup of Go for June 6, 2025, or June 7, 2025. We're recording on the 6th. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Jonathan Hall.
And I'm Shai Nechmad.
Hey, Shai.
You hesitated there for a second. Were you about to say I'm Shai Nechmad?
I was about to.
I saw it. How you doing, man?
All right. I'm getting ready to travel. I won't be here next week for the show because I'll be in Brighton in the UK.
Oh, my God. So if you want to replace Jonathan on next week's recording slot, come talk to us at the Cup of Go channel. If you already did it in the past, wait for a second. We want to try to get more friends of the show on the show.
And if you're going to be in Brighton, hit me up and we can have a drink.
Or Amsterdam, right?
Yeah, I'll be in Amsterdam one day, 2 nights, one day after that.
Cool. This week, I want to kick things off with the new minor release. Go 124.4 and Go 123.10 have been released. And they include 3 security fixes. One that I'm not going to try to even explain. It's from Crypto X509, whatever. I tried to read it. I couldn't understand it. But there are 2 that are in NetHTTP and in OS, 2 very popular, standard libraries that I'm going to try to explain. Very cool security fixes. The NetHTTP one is about leaking sensitive data.
Ooh.
So do you know what is the authorization header on HTTP requests? Like where we would use it?
Yeah, that's where you pass in your auth token or whatever, right? You say authorization bearer and then a bunch of seemingly random digits that represent a JWT or something.
Mm-hmm. What about in general, you have tons of ways to do it. You usually use the authorization header, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could use JWT, you could use basic auth, blah, blah, blah. Sure. Almost everybody who's done a web app at some point probably had to implement it either themselves or integrate with a third party provider, right? Now let me ask you a slightly harder question.
Mm-hmm.
If you implemented this, you probably know what a 401 error is in HTTP, right?
Yeah.
What's a 401?
I never remember 401 versus 403.
401 is unauthorized.
Unauthorized, yeah. And 403 is forbidden. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unauthorized means that you have not provided meaningful or correct authorization token of some sort. You haven't authenticated, right?
Yes. And now I'm going to raise the stakes one level higher to get to the actual problem in this security release. What is 407? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. So they also forgot about it when they implemented NetHTTP. Basically, in the same way you have authorization, you have a header called proxy authenticate. There's a weird ass thing in HTTP that proxies are a part of the protocol in some sense, instead of being just an extra layer. So there's a lot of little gotchas, and this is one of them. In NetHTTP, when you have an authorization header, right? If you do a redirect, you don't copy the authorization header. Right?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Because you don't want to, you redirect the request from cross origin, right? From A to B. And you want to make sure that you want to strip these sensitive headers. Why? Because if you redirect to a different site and you keep these headers on the request, I could just redirect you to my malicious site by just doing some XSS or whatever on a popular web site or phishing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You would log in with your real thing, and then I redirect you to mymaliciousite.com, and I still get these highly sensitive headers, which basically include your authorization. And then I can use your token.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
They did it for authorization, www authenticate, cookie, and cookie 2. And they just sort of forgot about proxy authentication or proxy authenticate. If you look at the actual change, and I'll put the specific commit. We don't usually do this, but I'll put the specific commit in the show notes. It's the easiest. I could read the commit out loud. You just add these 2 values to the constant thing of, the case includes also proxy authorization, proxy authenticate. And they also added like a one test case just to make sure. But yeah, proxy authenticate. It's like a header that defines the authentication method or challenge to gain access behind a proxy server. So you put the thing in proxy authenticate, and then the proxy would like translate the request internally and just put it in the regular header. And 407 is the proxy telling you, hey, you forgot to give me the creds instead.
Right.
So it's like part of the fetch standard. It's part of HTTP standard. It's like written all over the place. Just in every place you see, the normal authorization thing is written. And then in like an extra paragraph, it's also, oh, don't forget, also proxy. So they did forget. It was reported by, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Takeshi Kaneko from GMO Cybersecurity by Lerea, something like that, Incorporated. Thank you for reporting this issue. So they fixed this CVE. If you have Go code that does like network stuff, server stuff, you implemented the proxy or something like that, super relevant to you, and you should like probably upgrade.
I've done a lot with proxies. I don't think I've ever used proxy auth not in Go anyway. I may have in a previous lifetime.
It might have happened like without you knowing it, right?
Yeah, that's very
like
possible.
Nginx taking care of it for you or something. So that's the first one.
All right, what else?
The second security fix is also super cool, and it's you one of your favorite topics: Linux against Windows, right? Longtime listener of the show will know that Jonathan uses Linux, which is why it took him like 3 months to set up his home network when he moved to his new.
That is not why, but okay.
It's in the same culture category, but there was just a behavior that was inconsistent between Linux and Windows when you try to create a file handle. I'll describe the scenario and you'll tell me what do you think should be the behavior, right?
Okay.
So I'm calling open file with like create. I want to create a new file, right?
All right.
And the target path is a symlink, like a dangling symlink.
So there's a symlink that's on the disk, but it doesn't point to anything. And you're trying
like
to
a
create.
shortcut. Again, in Windows terms, like a shortcut, but the underlying thing behind the shortcut doesn't exist.
All right. And now I'm trying to create that
create
file, even though it already exists as a symlink. Okay.
What should I do? What should happen? What would you want to happen as like a developer?
I would either want to overwrite that file or give an error because it already exists, depending on which mode I'm using, right?
So it's with ocreate and oexcel. So
I would expect that to give an error.
So there's an inconsistent behavior between these two systems. In the proposal, you can even see like they included a test that shows like this test will pass on Linux and fail on Windows, which is like, when you call OS open file, you want to see an error. So if you create a symlink to something that does not exist, it should fail when you try to create that, to like open file and create that file. When I looked into it, the one interesting thing I found is the hacking lab like behind it. I'm not sure what type of organization it is specifically. Maybe it's like an academic thing. It at least looks like it. But hackinglab.keist, which is in Korea, the Advanced Institute of Science and Technology in South Korea. They have like a GitHub. They have the people. And the person who reported this specific vulnerability, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Junyoung Park. They're just one of the PhD students in this group. And it looks like there's a lot of people here, which I found it pretty cool. Like you can see the people behind it, and they're like a bunch of students in South Korea. So if you want to follow them or like check it out, you go to keisthacking.github.io and like see all their publications, all their CVEs. They do some really cool stuff. Insecurity of mandatory security software for financial services in South Korea. Just like a paper and things like that. I thought it was pretty cool because they're like not just doing, it's not just one person. It's like an organization, a hacking organization, which we don't see very often. For example, Junyoung Park released in the beginning of this year, RGFuzz, rule-guided fuzzer for WebAssembly runtimes. That's cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they also have some CVs and even like the number of dollars they made on bounty on it, which I thought is a pretty strong flex, right? Like, look how much money we made bug bounty. So that's a security release. The bottom line is you need to upgrade your minor version. You should do that anyway. Even if you don't understand the underlying security fixes, you always want to be on the latest version.
And of course, the third one you didn't go into detail on is related to X509 certificates. If you're using that, upgrade too, even though we're not talking about the details there.
Yeah. So a cool security release. I liked it. I like it when the security stuff is a thing I can pretend I understand.
Awesome. Next up, so anybody who follows Go on social media probably already knows this has happened, but the Go team, specifically Robert Grassimir, has published a post about this error handling in Go. TLDR, we've been talking about improving error handling for years with dozens or hundreds, possibly thousands of proposals directly or indirectly related to it, and cannot get anywhere close to consensus. So Go team has decided for the foreseeable future, we will stop pursuing syntactic language changes for error handling. We'll also close all open and incoming proposals that concern themselves primarily with the syntax for error handling without further investigation. I can hear half of the audience cheering. I can hear the other half of the audience groaning. I don't know. Regardless of the conclusion, I feel like it's a little bit of nice to have a reprieve from this topic. I don't know. What do you think, Shai?
I'm really happy to anything that helps focus.
Yeah,
is a good idea. If the team can focus on things that the whole point of Go proposal, Go discussion, Go whatever is to drive action, right? Mm-hmm. These discussions are not action. Action is code that it gets committed to Go and gets released in a version. Yep. Anything else is bureaucracy.
Fair enough.
Code or documentation or talks or education or funds. Yeah. These are actions, but just talking about the proposal itself, while it is useful, it's only useful in the sense that it will lead to action. I'm 100% convinced that talking about error handling in Go will not lead to action at this point. So I'm really glad to see them closing the lid on it. I feel the same way about YAML, right? I proposed a while ago to put YAML in the standard library. They gave a really, really good reason why not to. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. But then I on something I care about even more, I was like, the time formats in Go are horrible. Let's improve those. They were like, listen, we feel you. We think you're right. But look at all these previous discussions. We're not opening this anymore. And they just closed the issue. So it stung for a little bit. But on the other hand, now they can focus on, I don't know, things that do have consensus and will go into the language. And there are so many interesting things we can do, right? This allows focus. So I'm happy that it allows focus. And I'm putting aside my opinion about whether I think error handling in Go is good or not.
Yeah.
Putting my opinion back in, I think error handling is fine. I don't get it's fine. Sure, it's a little verbose. Whatever, who cares? The moment you get used to this code, you read through it pretty fast anyway.
Yeah, I'm reminded, I know not everybody listening here, of course, follows the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm not talking about a specific case, but whenever they often rule on something other than the actual case, right? I don't know if Bob should have been allowed to do this thing to Alice, but he wasn't allowed to sue her for this reason, that sort of thing. And this is kind of like that. Nobody's saying that error handling is good or bad. That's not the point. The point is we're not talking about it anymore because we can't make progress on the discussion around it. So yeah, there's room to love or to hate Go's error handling and still decide we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, now you know it's set in place.
So
I think it's called a legal precedent or something like that.
That's a separate concept. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I will say, I think that at this point, people who are unhappy with the error handling to the point it really, really bothers them are going to be less and less. Because I don't know about you, but the more I use Copilot, and this is exactly the sort of boilerplate that I'm happy to see when I'm debugging, right? Because I can read the code line by line and there's no magic. What's the line of code I'm reading is the line of code that's running on the CPU, and it's not there's going to be an exception or something unexpected, monkey patching in Python or whatever.
Right.
But writing the code is becoming less and less of a bottleneck because the moment I start writing a function, cursor already does the If error is not nil, return error, or whatever error handling pattern I already have in that function. So writing it is not a big issue. And when reading it, I'm happy that it exists because of the like extra debugging ease that it gives me and like my ability to reason about the system. This is my opinion, not like this is just an opinion in that regard. But I think it's one of the reasons that drive them to change this. Because if, I don't know, instead of LLMs, we had a different thing invented that would make reading code and reasoning about code like the main thing that's improving all the time, and you would look at code all the time instead of writing it, maybe it would have, tilted the scales a different way. But with just the physical text in the code file becoming less and less typed and more generated, like who cares? I didn't care before, but now I care even less.
All right. Well, enough about that. We're not going to talk about error handling anymore ever on this show since it's been that's been closed. We probably will talk about it on the show, but
Go Team does not allow it.
So we have one more story to talk about, a blog post before we jump into the break and the lightning round. This blog post comes from Redouane Deloire. It is called "You Probably Don't Need a DI Framework." And I have to say, I was very happy to read this, not because of the content per se or the opinion it expresses, but because it explained to me what a DI framework does in Go. I've been wondering this for a long time because I've never used one. And I do agree with the conclusion, that aside now, I do agree with the conclusion that you don't need one. I've never used one, therefore I don't, and I do dependency injection all the time. So I'm not surprised to hear someone else say that you don't need one. What were your thoughts when you read this, Shai?
My thoughts on it is it's very pragmatic. I like it a lot. Coming from both lower level and higher level languages, like my experience before starting Go was either like C++, like Python and C#. Dependency injection was a big thing. Like everybody taught me, object-oriented, dependency injection, solid framework, blah, blah, blah. But then when I actually did the first civilian project I did in Go at Reco, we just passed things in constructors. And I was really happy with that. So I based my design based on like GoKit, right? Which is mostly very like lightweight, not a lot of like framework, capital F framework, few opinions. And one of the opinions is like, okay, so you need like a service and a controller and a blah, 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 endpoints, and we're going to generate those for you. But you're just going to have a big like main where you call new on a whole bunch of things. And there's going to be like two separate concepts. And I really like that when your code is like, this file is called Bootstrap and it calls new on all the things based on configuration, like initialize the logger and whatever. And the rest of the files are your business logic. And they just assume everything's already initialized. It's great for tests. It worked really well for me. I'm really happy to see like someone who's working at like a real company. Redouane is like at Wolt, which is a huge, like, it's like DoorDash. I used to use it all the time in Israel. Saying basically, yeah, Shai, you were right. Your lived experience does track in other companies as well.
Yeah.
If you let your DI framework figure it out for you, you're going to have a bad time. And calling new and a whole bunch of things just is easier than having it happen in runtime using the DI framework. I think the biggest problem is that the DI framework also came from Google, right? So the Wire DI framework, which is the biggest one, is also from Google. So it has an air of like being official or being like the supported way to do things, which is just not true. So I'm really happy to see this blog post. I think it hits like right on the money.
So I do think it's worth pointing out the problem that DI frameworks are ostensibly meant to solve, right? And that is that you sometimes end up with these constructors that take 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 different arguments for all the different dependencies they have, right? And that can look ugly. And by using a dependency injector framework, maybe pass one thing in that kind of magically handles all that for you. So it can look nicer, but I think that it's the infamous example of hiding complexity that Go tries not to do.
It just adds more confusion than what it's worth. I don't think it is of zero value. It's nice. I just think that the cost it introduces is much higher than the value.
Sure.
Even if you have a ton of modules. And by the way, like if you have a thing, like a new call that has 1 million dependencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say not 1 million. Let's say reasonably, right? It's I don't know, your main whatever module, right? And it depends on the database module, and the database module depends on the configuration module, and the configuration module depends on the logger module, right? And it also depends on the, I don't know, widget service, and the widget service depends also on the configuration module, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, oh my God, I'm passing in the logger thing 1 million times. Yeah. Wouldn't you prefer to see it and be like, oh, maybe it's better for me to just make the logger like global static and not have all these dependencies? If you have a DI framework, it's not like that architectural nonsense doesn't exist. It just happens at runtime. I would rather just see it like with my 2 eyes and see, oh, this is the complexity I introduced. Exactly. Maybe I should do something about it. I'm using Nest.js right now, which is all about dependency injection. It's JavaScript, unfortunately. Well, TypeScript. But like you never call a constructor of anything. You just define like in decorators, this depends on that, imports this, and it like calls the decorators for you. And both me and my CDO are just like haphazardly trying to add random imports here and there, trying to make the like runtime resolver work. And then, you know, I don't mean to like crap on Nest.js. It's fine, but you need to buy the DevTools like SaaS application. It's $5 a month, and then it reports to you, hey, you have these unnecessary, I don't know, provider exports that you can remove. So it's like, wouldn't I just rather write the constructor? I don't know.
Yeah. Constructors are the one exception I have to the general rule of like no more than 4 arguments to a function or whatever number you choose, right? I don't follow that religiously when it comes to constructors because I want to see, just like you're saying, I want to see the complexity that my constructor is taking on. And sometimes I refactor that. If I feel like my constructor is taking too many things, then that's a sign that maybe I need to do some refactoring, move some dependencies around, turn it into 2 different things or whatever.
Yeah, the graph is too dense.
Yeah,
I will say my rule is the same, but that all constructors must be either in bootstrap.go or be of something that is actually in business value is dynamic, like loading a real plugin, like loading a new DLL into Notepad++ or something. But I really don't want to call new on like a real module. I'm not talking about like just a data transfer object, a real like class thing outside of like the graph creation part of the code. So you have graph creation part of the code where functions can take as many parameters as they want, because this basically represents the wiring of your application versus the business logic where that represents just every single node, and you want every single node to be very understandable and small, take a few, like functions should be short, should be tested, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love this blog post. Great stuff, Radwan.
I'm curious if anybody listening disagrees. If you love your DI framework, let us know why. Which one you're using and what problem it solves for you and why you love it. We'd love to hear about that on our Slack channel, which I think is a great segue into our little break where we talk about our Slack channel. So if you don't know, we have a Slack channel. It's on the Gopher Slack. We're Cup-A-Go Kebab Case. Come join the conversation there, along with, I think we have close to 600 people now, 553. You can also find us on the web, cupago.dev. You can find links to all of our things there, our swag store, all the past episodes, links to our personal profiles so you can see what we look like. Yeah. What else, Shai?
It's a cool channel. It's kind of a fun place. I accidentally incited an AI-related discussion, so maybe wait a day and then it'll become like AI-free zone again.
Well, you're in San Francisco, where apparently they believe in AI 110%. So
I mean, I took a driverless car to my meetup, so I it's hard to argue with it. You know, there's something in the water. I do want to shout out, like you said at the beginning of the show is supported by the listeners via Patreon. So 2 things. One, Patreon reminded me to remind you, don't use the iOS app because it takes like a cut. So just use the web version instead. We wanted to say a lot of thanks to our new listeners that joined Patreon. Landy Bible, new supporters, I should say. Landy Bible, Mikkel Christensen, and Simon Law, which I met actually physically in the meetup. Like, I know how this person looks. Thanks, Landy, Mikkel, and Simon. We really appreciate your support.
We don't pay to advertise, so if you could share this show with your friends, colleagues, fellow students, leave a review, leave a rating. That is all that we need to get this show known about. Our listenership is growing. We had a record-breaking month last month as far as number of downloads. We love that. Keep up the good work. Keep sharing the show.
And one final reminder, if you want to replace Jonathan next week and host the show with me, talk to me on the Slack. I don't want to do the episode alone, basically. Is it? All right, let's do a quick lightning round.
Let's do a lightning round.
Lightning round.
First on the lightning round, the Stack Overflow developer survey this year is open.
Stack Overflow? I thought it's dead.
Yeah, I think it might be.
That's a shame, actually.
I have to say, I did this survey, and you can imagine it's all about AI and how do you use AI and how would you like Stack Overflow to be improved with AI. And I have to say, I think half of these questions are written by AI because they don't make sense and there's grammatical errors and like logical errors and all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. I have to say, I wasn't really impressed with the survey this year. But
I'll tell you another thing, and I'm putting this in our channel right now, like our internal host channel. I just opened Stack Overflow, and it got like a "oops, something bad happened" error. You know what? I'll skip it this year, I think.
Anyway, when the results are out, we will, of course, go digging through the results to see anything relevant to go, and we'll talk about that in a few weeks or months, whenever that's around.
If there's something relevant.
It
might have faded into irrelevance, this site, unfortunately. My lightning round thing is a cool idea. I haven't tried using it yet. I don't think I will, but I really like it. It's called Gitbug. Where do you are like a contractor, right? You do work with clients for them, whatever. Where do you like tracking bugs the most? I assume it's not Jira, even though you had to do that.
Definitely not Jira.
Linear, maybe?
I usually prefer whatever is tied to the source control we're using. So it's usually GitHub issues or GitLab issues.
So you might like Gitbug, which is storing the bugs in like inside Git in the .git directory. So you manage issues, users, and comments like directly from within the repo. So it's versioned, it's like clutter free, it's distributed, right? So it's like on everybody's machine. It's kind of fast because it's on your machine. And it even synchronizes with GitHub using bridges. So, you could start using it while your team is using GitHub. This is all like theoretically, right? I haven't tried it yet. I do want to try it using it like and combine it with Linear and see how it works. But it's sort of a new project. I found it. It was trending on GitHub. That sounds like something you'd like to be involved in. Check it out. I think it's rather exciting. Like a new way to track bugs. That's cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'm curious how it would handle like conflicts and stuff. But
and videos, like half of the bugs I put for the front end, I want to say team guy at work. This is an advantage of working in a small startup. Include like a small video of me, like, hey, this is how it messes up.
Yeah,
it is interesting. I like the concept. I might try it.
Cool. Last today on the lightning round, friend of the show and previous co-host, so I guess he's not eligible this time. Jamie Tana has done a blog post about looking back for last year about API CodeGen. We had him on the show as an interviewee, also talking about OpenAPI CodeGen.
Sure, yeah. So as you mentioned, I am one of the maintainers of a Go command line tool and library called OAPI CodeGen. OAPI CodeGen transforms OpenAPI specifications.
If you are a user or potential user of OAPI CodeGen, this might be relevant to you. It sort of gives us, like I said, a summary of the changes over the last year, which versions were released, and of course, looking forward into the future. They're looking for some sponsors. Jamie would love to spend some dedicated time on this to implement new features that are not there right now.
Yeah, specifically OpenAPI 3.1, like supporting the new version of OpenAPI. Generally, I think this blog post, post on the GitHub announcements and his blog post on his site, just give the air of this is like a serious thing, like serious production thing, which is very cool.
So that's it. Check it out. We will be back together in 2 weeks' time. Next week, I hope you have fun without me.
All right. Program exited.
Program exited. Goodbye.